work. I just want to battle these books all day. I don't want to play. I just want to read all my books all day. Bugga, 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 bugga. Hey, okay, we're pushing some buttons over here. And getting ready. I don't know what Cooper's doing there. I don't want to work. I just want to battle these books all day. Does he actually say I don't want to play? Because that seems counter message to me. Bada bone and bang on my dum all day, but like I don't want to play. I just want to read on my book all day. Hockey, 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 ha. Don't want to work. I just want to bang on the drum all day. And I don't want to play. I just want to read on my books all day. Okay, just another minute here. Greetings, everybody. Pulling everything together here for this somewhat technically advanced stream. Was going to do this pre-recorded, and then I started doing it. I was putting the shots together and recording and getting them into Premiere, and I'm like, this sucks. There's no energy. I'm just like not in that phase. You know, I like to lead like no, that's more where I am nowadays. So I was just like, I'm gonna stick with where I'm at. So we're gonna get into this. Book battle, book battle, book battle. All right, I think everything is set. Looks like everything's working. I see colors moving. I see people. I feel the faces of my fathers. Oh, love and thunder, bring me forth from the void. Yay! Monkey Man. Greetings, program. It's old Ingrid Bernal here. Your old buddy from New area. I'm just kicking it in my dark little lair, even though it's a sunny day out, because I don't want to play. I don't want to work. I just want to bang on my drum all day. Or wait, I just want to read on my books all day. If you guys are like me, you've spent many a sunny day watching the other children run by and play on their water slides and their baby pools while you stay inside and read your cool RPG books. And that's what I've been doing for the past 6 weeks now. 6 weeks, for God's sakes. For all the God's sakes. That's the apostrophe after the S, because I got my hands on something that blew my mind up. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is Runehammer, and I'm your hostesses with the mostesses, Ingrid Bernal here. We're doing a book battle, and enough nonsense. Book battle to me is basically you come across a book, it's so damn good, you think it's better than what you thought the best book in that sort of category was, but then you're like, no, that's not possible. I'm just like jazzed because this is new, and I'm new to it. I got a case of the noonies. So I wanted to break it down, and actually, as I was breaking it down for myself in my notebook, see, I got my little set of notes here, like why I think the things I think. Before I do that, and why I'm doing that, it actually sort of revealed some design principles to me that were like really fascinating and felt really interesting and relevant to this month's theme here on Runehammer, which is the RPG Underground, right? It's this concept that the coolest things in our hobby are made by us, but they're not easy to make, and so there's like a lot of deep thinking to do. There's some technical skills involved. There's some practice involved with those skills. There is some sort of idea, fizz pop going on. There's a lot of parts and pieces to us being the creative force behind our hobby, and that doesn't always mean publishing. It can just mean for your home game. Matter of fact, that's the coolest kind of DIY creation. But publishing then asks for that next level, right? And so when you're looking at either getting a new book or you just got one and you're kind of thinking, is this really anything I want to use, or am I just like got freaky like collector syndrome? Because let's face it, RPG people, we have collector syndrome. We like to have a lot of books on our shelf. We have to have millions of minis, way more dice than we would ever use, right? And so you got, which one are you doing and why, and what do you think about it? Be critical, get smarter, all that good stuff. All right. So The book battle today is between, in this corner, the all-time mofo classic, Rappan. Oops, is it over here? Am I looking at it? The wonder of modern technology, Rappan Athuk. You guys have probably seen my video about Rappan Athuk. I think I've done 3 videos about Rappan Athuk. Epic rap battles of history, Rappan Athuk. Anyways, Rappan Athuk goes way back in time. There's a lot of great contributors to it. It has changed and grown over time. It is a sort of, how do I put it? Under Temple of Orcus is kind of the mega summary here. And then it has all these different layers that each have their independent stories, all kinds of parts and pieces, boatloads of maps. And basically one of the biggest, rarest, most expensive, most collectibly insane books that your RPG shelf can feature. This thing is a colossus. Now, I've done videos about that, so if you want to look up what I've already done, you can. But there it is. Bah! I paid $100 for this thing back in the day. We raised the money via tips in a live stream, and I used those tips for something to better the world, which is to comprehend if this was worth this hype and worth this giganticness and this almost like biblical feel that this thing's have. Okay, so that's the one. In the one corner, we have the legend of Rappan Athuk. I don't even know if my table can barely hold that thing up. In the other corner, we have the contender. We got the featherweight over here. This is called Barrowmaze. This is the latest edition of Barrowmaze, which has some of its additional materials all put into one book. So you don't longer have to get the basic and then the additional materials. This is Barrowmaze Complete. It is by one person, Greg Gillespie, who has done the work of 10,000 men in this book. 10,000 men, I say. That could be employing the mechanic or the technique normally referred to as hyperbole in this case. But Greg Gillespie has done a wondrous feat. Okay, so I want to break down. I'm going to hit you with Rappan Athuk versus Barrowmaze, okay? Why? Why do we want to talk about these books? Now, right now, as I'm chit-chatting and blowing up your ear holes, you can probably be jumping on your other tab in your browser and you're looking at these books, how much they cost, where you can find them. That's cool. You're a cool person. That way you can also look at a lot of the interior art online and you can start to do some chin scratching. Be like, am I interested in this at all? This video is partially about should you be interested, and more so about the design principles that make these books different and what the ramifications are of those design principles. Here, look, I think there's some ants. Ants have been messing with my camera. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Okay. First of all, what's the dillywhip? I want to give you the quick summary on what I think the pros and cons on each one are. I'm just going to hit you real fast because I want to get to the interesting stuff. Okay? With Rappan Athuk, the coolest thing is the scale. This thing is a mega dungeon in the true sense of mega. It puts the mega in mega dungeon. It is colossal. It is so huge. There's like 20 years of gameplay in this book, which may drive some of you crazy. It drives me a little bit crazy. But there's just a boatload. So if you're looking for sheer volume, this is its hugest strength. And its hugest weakness for Rappan Athuk, the scale. It's so big, you don't want to pick it up. You don't want to sit and watch a movie and open this thing up. It's weird. It feels like a King James Bible. You know, it's just like, holy moly. It's just too freaking big. Okay, now on the plus side, Rappan Athuk really comes in heavy with playable battles. Now they lay out maps and the monsters involved and some of the environmental components involved in a way that is very playable. Even if you didn't use any of the stats or mechanics or numbers or anything, just the ideas. There's some cool stuff with like some salamanders, for example, in one part down in these sort of magma caves. And the way that they break down the specifics is just like, oh my God, I can see it in my mind. I can bring it to the table. Next, the thing I love about Rappan is the pre-gens. I love when a big dungeon comes with pre-generated heroes. It's a very sort of polarizing issue for gamers. Some people absolutely love pre-gens. Some see them as completely useless. I think they're really cool because they just are built to fit. They're made by the designers, and I just want to be them right away. You know, it'd just be like playing Tannis Half-Elven in your Dragonlance campaign, right? You just dive right in, you fit right in, you're like custom fit to the game, your background fits everything. It's really cool. So I really like the pre-gens. And then finally, just the legitness I don't even know if that's a word or should be a word, but the legitness of Rappan Athuk is tangible. Like, it is legit. Like, they did not shortcut anything like I do in a lot of my creative work and chalk it up to DIY. Every little nook and cranny is covered, and it feels legit. Like, these guys are real deal brilliant designers, okay? Now, we've got some major... Well, let's do the cons all together. Okay, so let's do the pros for Barrowmaze next. The Barrowmaze, the art, the layout, and the overall concept is brilliant. Rappan Athuk is cool, but Barrowmaze is new and innovative. It has all these extra decades to build on concepts, and it makes good on that time and that innovation. And it really does matter. Well, there goes another one of those starships. They keep passing overhead. The second one, and this is the biggest one for me, Barrowmaze has a purity in its design. It is very purely made for a crawling experience. Now, Rappan Athuk is a big dungeon crawl, yes, but it really just feels like lots of different interconnected indoor adventures. And that is a very different tone than a carefully designed crawl experience. I'll get into that in a little bit. Second of all, I think that Town... Wait, this is third of all. For Barrowmaze, Town is really, really playable in Barrowmaze. You guys know me. I hate Town. I hate going to Town and so-called downtime in all D&D. It is annoying. I don't like this sort of time becomes a morass. We're worrying about the taxes on our stronghold and basically stroking each other's egos because we're not in any danger, and look at us, we're gallivanting and we have our own castle, and roll on a random table and some goblins are decimated on the front gate. I'm bored. I don't want to do it. But in Barrowmaze, the way that Town works is very integral to the overall purity of the design. And I don't know if I've ever seen that done that well. Even my own paltry version of how to control time and options in Town is worse than this. Okay, now there's something in Barrowmaze that is a huge plus that I have not seen in books for quite a while, which is an art section. This is a section of full-page art for you to use in a photocopier. A photocopier, or a scanner, or use your phone as a camera, whatever, but it's just giant art. Now, even if you don't directly use this, kind of like a lot of my art in Index Card RPG, even if you don't directly use it at your table, just being able to look at this much art at this scale is so much more evocative than any amount of text and maps. Evocative. It's got it. Bang. Finally, the pre-gens. I know this is a plus for Rappan, but it's also a plus for Barrowmaze. I love cool pre-gens, and I actually like the ones in Barrowmaze even better. They have a little more humanity to them. Really dig them, and just looking at it makes me want to just drop whatever I'm doing, call my homies, and kick it. Just jump right in and grab those things, and just for some reason they fit together in such a way. It's awesome. Okay, so those are the pros on both sides. Now we got cons. Now, on Rappan, I talked about the scale. It's just too stinking big. Also, a ton of that scale has no art to go with it. Almost every time you do a random splat open on Rappan Athuk, you get two facing pages with no art, and that's a bummer to me. Also, I think that Rappan is going to be really hard to run, like sort of in a purist kind of way, without building lots of custom mechanics that fit your table. Not a lot of people are playing just flat Pathfinder without mods. Not a lot of people are just playing like flat 2E. Everybody has a lot of stuff going on, complexity going on, 5E. They have ins and outs that they use and discard, and being able to process down the density of data in Rappan to your table is not going to be easy. Now, you're going to be cool if you accomplish it, but it's not going to be easy. This is a bit of an interesting one to convey, but I think there's a lot of arbitrary map complexity in Rappan Athuk. That means we're looking at the bloodways as part of Rappan Athuk. It's a certain level involving all these sort of blood mechanics and blood storage and blood feeding and blood boiling and reduction and use in architecture, all kinds of crazy blood-themed stuff. Anyways, when you're in there, the number of little blobs and doohickeys and wiggly corridors and everything seems like, why are there this many little spaghetti corridors? Like, what does all this arbitrary geometry really accomplish in these maps? And okay, one or two of maps have those, but after a few hundred, you're just like, dear Lord, this is just like bowls of spaghetti, tons of them. So that's a really tough critique that I think they have a hard time answering, that Barrowmaze does not suffer from at all. Barrowmaze has very, very tight little miniature maps that form the big dungeon. Okay, so what's great about Barrowmaze? Barrowmaze could use a little bit of brevity in it. And as an extension of that critique, too much in Barrowmaze is listed as a sort of an empty or passive room. You come into a quiet crypt and there's sort of nothing here. Then just cut it out of the book, in my opinion. Just cut it out. You can have one of those out of 100 rooms, and that's enough. And this also goes by Skull Fungus's rule, right? Which is like every dungeon should contain one empty room. And I do agree, because it reduces the what's in this room type thing. It's like a break from that. But you can't have dozens or more. It doesn't feel right. It makes skimming difficult because I'm often finding those. So that is a tough critique that I think Greg Gillespie, who I think is a freaking genius of this hobby, needs to address. Okay, this is something that I drove me a little crazy. Is in Barrowmaze, it uses abbreviated monster listings. And this is used in some degree in Rappan Athuk as well. And it's a very sort of, I wouldn't say necessarily old school, but you don't see it as much nowadays, which is these little micro super dense stat blocks for monsters, right? And they're all using acronyms and abbreviations. They're baffling. And I've been playing for years, just like all you guys, and they're still just like, on a glance, they're baffling. And if you need to abbreviate a monster to tightly convey it, you have too many mechanics going on. Like, like hit dice and hit points, this kind of stuff. And like, its initiative is this and its flat-foot initiative is that. And so you got like init and FF init and HD and HP and like all these weird like nonsense letters. Each one independently is pretty easy to understand, but abbreviated monster condensed things, just that. Cut them. Redesign how you list monsters so that they look cool and are easy to read. And then finally, I'd like to say, well, there's two more on Barrowmaze. One is there's a bit of a list addiction on Barrowmaze. And you guys know my sort of opinion that sometimes RPG books have this strange tendency to put too many lists in there. And I love the book Hubris by Mike Evans, but that one is like the list overload 2000. But I think that was kind of like his theme in Hubris, right? His theme was like, here's 1,000,000 D100 tables. And it's just like, oh, my brain. But I think in Barrowmaze, it's actually working against Mr. Gillespie just a little bit. And like just half as many tables and lists would have been great. I think actually Black Hack 2nd edition suffered from this a little bit too. It's like if I see too many listy type tables, I start going a little bit cross-eyed and I start sort of getting weary or something. I can't explain my pathetic attention span, but there it is. And then finally, the cover on Barrowmaze is so far behind some of the interior art. I don't know why this is the cover. I don't even know what this is. Maybe I haven't read enough to fully understand what this is. But this book, this maze, this dungeon is about the Tablet of Chaos, which is a super cool core concept. Why isn't it on the cover? Why, Greg Gillespie? Why? This stuff is so badass in here. Some of this interior art is so freaking badass. Like this huge skull door is so badass. Why isn't that the cover? Well, it's upside down, but now that's a cover. That's freaking amazing. Why is this sort of the cover? Now, is the cover an important thing with a book? No, not really. But this is a book battle. No holds barred, baby. Okay. So there's all the cons and the pros. All right. Did I even list the pros? I did the pros first. I'm just goofing around. It's every time Cooper makes a high-pitched noise, I sort of lose my train of thought. I think it's probably nearing his time, his FOD time. Okay. Barrowmaze versus Rappan Athuk. Stay focused. All right. Barrowmaze wins. There it is. Barrowmaze is a better Megadungeon than Rappan Athuk. I'm going on the record to say it. Rappan Athuk, guys, you're going to have to revisit your book. You're going to have to boil it down to 1/8 its current size. You're going to have to be more clean and more effective with everything you're doing. You need more art. You need less arbitrary maps. And you need easier to translate data. Some of your ideas, Rappan Athuk, totally dope. I can't take that away from you. But the pound for pound element of Rappan Athuk. Just needs work. But that's not why you lose, my friend. That is not why you lose. Also, your price tag sucks. Just get out of here with a $100 book. Okay, the reason that Greg Gillespie single-handedly has dismantled what I used to consider the world's best Megadungeon is that he designed his entire concept, all his mechanics, all his interior, exterior, thematic data, dice mechanics, tables, everything is very tightly and constantly reinforcing the idea that the heroes are going in as far as they can, running out of resources, coming out to the tavern, restocking, selling, using gold, getting items, just like back in the 2E days, AD&D, then going back in and delving a bit further through an entrance they may have already been using, and lather, rinse, repeat as far as they can, and probably actually grinding through a few or more groups of heroes as they try to do so, because you've got some deadliness going on here, right? All good games do. This sort of slavish attention that Greg Gillespie has paid to how detailed and tangible and limbic the experience of delving can be is, in my opinion, without compare. He doesn't let himself get distracted with other cool ideas, because let's face it, there's always other cool ideas to do. And often they come in the form of not the heroes. You guys are probably familiar with, well, I don't even think I'm going to even mention it, but there was another Megadungeon book that was out there that whose name shall not be named because I don't want to give it any more press. But it took a very creative angle on things that was very weird, and it was so weird and so strange that it actually took the stage from the heroes, in my opinion. It was so self-obsessed. It was like a Megadungeon that was narcissistic. Now, it's a lot of interesting ideas at play, but let's face it, the dungeon is just a stage for the heroes. And this is somewhere where Greg Gillespie really shines. He makes this huge commitment. His commitment is that the Barrowmaze is just a series of grave tunnels that over the centuries have been dug deeper to accommodate different type of burials. And then when evil forces come into this sort of labyrinth type space, obviously bad things start happening. He then dedicates himself to this singularity of theme, which is sort of grave things, dead things, and reanimated dead things. This is terribly limiting to a designer. You don't get all these mind flayers and beholders and gelatinous cubes and things flying and, like, you know, guillotine swinging things and all this crazy stuff. You have to stick to this really simple, like, skeleton, zombie, ghoul type formula. So on the one hand, you're like, come on, ugh. But he does it. He pulls it off. The focus is so tight that it just makes sense. And this is where I wanted to come to the more meta type comment that I wanted to describe about Barrowmaze and how it's informative to us as content creators, and why I really, really, really think it's worth your money. It demonstrates what I think a true sort of hobby level designer, a home designer making game for her players, can and should accomplish, which is this hyper focus. Now, you don't have to be hyper focused on something like Barrowmaze ad infinitum for the next 5 years. And this is another thing I love about Barrowmaze. It feels like you could play it in a year rather than in 15. But I think that the level of thematic focus and reinforcement that Greg Gillespie shows is just brilliant and is really useful as a principle for a hobby level designer. So when you start to see how he's stitching together gold and equipment and XP, he's basically writing the book for Labyrinth Lord, which is a AD&D offshoot, basically, THACO offshoot. So he's in that old mindset, you know, and in my opinion, that mindset is built on progression through acquisition and through actions, not through options. And, you know, we might want to get into a video about that sometime. But that was what I loved about 2E, about this era. This era presented a full RPG in this much space. Now, I know that I am you guys know I'm a huge TSR fan, but in this much space, they present everything. A world, monsters, characters, equipment, fortresses. Somebody mentioned to me the other day how novel fortresses, and that's a new concept. I think it was George on the Discord channel. It's all in this book from way the hell back in the 90s, and they do it in this much space, and it was great. A lot of what makes heroes cool in this game is what you do and what you acquire, not chin scratching over all these, interconnecting options, which is much more modern to me as far as design. And I think that Greg Gillespie takes this approach in Barrowmaze. Now, just to keep constantly reinforcing what you're going to see on the internet, it's this is what you want. The reason that I wanted to throw up this video is two reasons. One, I really, really dig Rappan Athuk. I always have. I thought it was a tremendously mind-expanding experience to try to get through Rappan Athuk. I don't think really I technically have. I think I've probably read a quarter of it, and I've had it for years. It's just so overwhelmingly big. But I've always been a real fan of the techniques, the precision, and the diligence used in creating that Megadungeon. And it's honestly a lot more than a Megadungeon. It's much more like what would be considered like an adventure path nowadays, Pathfinder, for example. So then to have Barrowmaze come along, and there's a few good videos out there by Questing Beast and others that review Barrowmaze, and you should definitely check those out. But to have that come along, and I'm sitting down and I'm reading, and I'm just like, oh my God, I love the feel of this. I love the playability of it. I love how he's delivering the concepts to me, and then he's kind of waiting and then springing sort of his sort of one little room at a time map sort of communication technique on me. And it's just working. I'm just right there with him. It's brilliant human communication in this book that just won me over. And so I felt a responsibility to make a video about how I think this book inherits the crown of this sort of the big dungeon type game. And we all have this sort of maybe secret fantasy, or it's one of our RPG bucket list type items to do like a really big delve like this. And there's a good reason. It's cool. It's quintessential RPG play. And I think this book captures it better than it's ever been captured. Finally, I just want to say a quick note about the art in Barrowmaze. It's unbelievably great. It's great because it's diverse, which is another thing that I love in a book, is where there's like 6 artists, 12 artists, and they have slightly different takes, but they're all using pen and ink. And it really gives this, almost this historical feeling that you're looking into a place that's real enough, where there's lots of people doing art about daily life. And there's all these fun illustrations that directly relate to what you're reading at that moment, which is brilliant. I love it. And there's no sort of Photoshop-y feeling stuff in there. I really think the plague of Photoshop-y, over-realized art like video game concept art is not good for our hobby. It just doesn't leave any room for you to imagine things. It's just there. It's just fully laid out. I really like to look at pen and ink when I'm conjuring my own game, because there's so much left for the mind to do. And then when you get to that art section in Barrowmaze, if that doesn't get you excited to play D&D, I don't know what will, honestly. And so will you ever necessarily use that art section in a mechanical fashion? I don't know. Probably not. I mean, who has a photocopier anymore, much less access to one? Although that would be really funny to get like a bunch of dimes and go to Safeway and be that guy in the corner who's like photocopying an RPG book, like back in the Disney. That would be cool. That would be cool. And you'd have to wear like a wizard hat the whole time. So I think there is some playable content in Rappan that's pretty cool. But honestly, their use of challenge rating and the math, I don't know what in it is hard and what isn't, because there's no way I'm going to process all the data accurately to get some kind of accurate challenge. I just instantly become tired even thinking about that. I really think that the difficulty of any given one piece of data or a piece of gameplay is up to so many factors, especially how you play it and the skill level and energy level of your players, that I don't think anything being read out of a book can be said to be hard or easy. And I think Barrowmaze sort of embraces this. It focuses on the experience of finding, of overcoming logistical problems, avoiding danger, and pulling out before you're dead. Right? And then getting in, restocking, resupplying. And the dungeon master is also restocking the dungeon to get some time to pass. Then the players arrive again. Things have changed slightly because of his restocking mechanics. They go in, things have changed slightly. They go deeper, and so on, and so on, and so on. And really, the two almost have the same story. There's a sort of a core evil. One is Orcus, one is Nurgle. You know, I mean, you put whatever weird word you want there. But I do really like the way that Greg Gillespie does the Tablet of Chaos. It's really this object, this relic that is emanating all this sort of negative energy and all these problems. So, in that regard, I really think that if you're thinking about anything that's like a delve, then absolutely Barrowmaze has got to be on your list. Now, this is a very, very different philosophical approach from something like, I don't know, Rise of Tiamat or Phandelver or Storm Giant's Thunder or whatever that one was called, or Chult, right? A lot of your D&D sort of setting bits are really trying to be multidimensional. They've got town, they've got NPC motivations, they've got sub-factions that are warring in the background that maybe you could align with this, that, or the other one. They've got revelations that are coming here and there. They've got huge expanses of open space where players can wiggle around in the pasture and whatever. There's this really, really realized world. And for some, rock on. That's not Barrowmaze. Barrowmaze is one little sort of swampy area near one little town. Then that one little town really only has a couple buildings you even care about. And that's it. It is, the town almost feels like a save point. It's so tightly delivered. And above all, I think Greg Gillespie just communicates better from the creative mind of the writer to me, the reader, what's supposed to happen and what this is supposed to feel like. So I did have those couple of sort of critiques on Barrowmaze, and they are tough ones. The abundance of empty rooms is frustrating when you're trying to skim and get the gist of a new area. It's really annoying. So Mr. Gillespie out there, I love you. If you're watching this video, I seriously hope you're not because you're awesome. But if there was one thing I would change, it would be to cut the brevity down on Barrowmaze a bit so that there's just aren't uneventful rooms. I know that they add to the rhythm. He has a time mechanic. He really thinks about how long it's going to take to explore, how long it's going to take to probe and look for things, and how time equates to noise and how noise equates to random monster rolls. It's all about wandering monsters in Barrowmaze, and it's brilliant. If the players know all they're dealing with is wandering monsters, time, darkness, hunger, injury, and getting out, everything changes. It is a true delve. It's like spelunking. Rather than, I think, much more the modern feel that I'm getting, at least from Wizards of the Coast, is a lot kind of like, here's a cool world, and now prepare for several cool cinematic moments that you will play through. You know, almost like sitting on that little boat in It's a Small World, right? Where it's kind of anything can happen. It's going to be funny, and we'll say some stuff, and we'll kind of play through it, and that can be awesome too. This is not Barrowmaze. Barrowmaze, like every 10 feet that you are getting into this thing further, like for example, when you find a bricked over doorway, it's going to take like 1 to 4 sledgehammers to get through this thing. Like you'll ruin the tools getting through these bricked over doorways, and you need to bring those tools. And you make a bunch of noise when you're cracking through these bricked over doorways, and each little bit of noise pulls random monsters. Now you're starting to feel how this game feels, and it's freaking joyful. Then you look at the cool art section, you're just like, oh my god, where are my friends? I can has Dungeon Delve immediately, right? Okay. Whew. That's where I'm at. So I wanted to get online to set the record straight. I think Barrowmaze is a superior book to Rappan Athuk, and I actually think it's probably one of the best dungeon crawl books ever created. It's absolutely brilliant. I think it's really unsung and underappreciated. I think it got a couple awards when it came out originally, but I don't think it's got the depth that it truly needs to sit in a very small list of books, a very small group of books then in my opinion, like, these two books are two of the most quintessential books that you could have. These guys should be side by side. These are legendary. So Greg Gillespie, unbelievable how good this is that you've created. And I just wanted to get online and throw down. Recently, Matt Shaker described me as a booster. We were talking about different YouTubers and their sort of style. And he described me as a booster. And I really, really, thank you, by the way, for making that comment, Matt. But I really like to think of myself that way. I do want to be a booster. A booster is like a cheerleader. I really like to point out stuff that I think is awesome, to expose it, but also to remind everybody that my goal here on YouTube is not to portray a professorial point of view. It is to be in the journey with all of you guys, discovering. I don't know all the stuff. I am not a font of information by any means. I am a bumbling discoverer, and I just want to root the hobby on, especially what I see as the sort of the high quality currents and eddies in the hobby, because I think like quality is supreme in this hobby, especially now that we're in this sort of so-called golden age, and with Kickstarter just introducing this flood of, oh my God, if I get another ad that tells me something is 5,000% funded in under an hour, I'm just gonna be, I don't freaking care. You're a giant board game company. I don't care how fast you funded your project. That's like Iron Man 3 telling me that it made $10 million in one night. I don't freaking care. So in that age of our hobby being flooded with content, to me, it's ultra important that we truly celebrate like the really good ones. So, whew, man, I ate a big old Honeycrisp apple before this stream, and I'm just like electrified. Okay. Yes, empty rooms do serve as time sink for random encounters. That is true, but from a reader's point of view, it becomes very cumbersome to find the material you're really looking for. If it just needed a room that was, it could just say empty, 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 empty. But even if that was the case, it would more reveal the repetition of it, and I think it might even look worse. So, yeah. So, hey, Adept Scholar, I'd like to speak to that. And by the way, let's just go into a free-form section, okay? Because we got a half an hour. Adept Scholar, I've been thinking about that a little bit lately, about maybe doing some more work to try to expand my viewer base. And honestly, I'm sort of not interested in it. I'm really glad that you guys are here. You guys are my peoples. You guys are my lumpy-headed, three-armed, five-thumb having mofos. And that's where it's at. I'm not really in the business of making clever thumbnails and doing like shocking video titles in neon text and stuff so that I can get, 150,000 semi-disposable viewers. I would much rather have 10,000 die-hard shield warriors than 210,000 sort of casual watchers who are sometimes my trolls. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate the spirit behind it, but I hope you guys understand that I would like to see my role on the internet as much more based in authenticity and just expressing my journey to everybody rather than sort of fishing for views and subs. I know that, everybody wants to grow and succeed, and I do too, of course. But that's kind of where I am on that. So thanks for the comment, though. Yeah, town should be a save point. That's JD talking. Absolutely. I think that in a lot of games, that mindset is there. People want that. I just have never seen an author deliver it with such concision and nailing the simplicity. He even has a chart where you can roll for who's in the tavern at any given moment, and then you can kind of play them, and they're right there. So it's like, hey, is Mephisto the Wonderful here? And you kind of roll for it. It's like, oh yeah, he just happens to be here today. And he's like, hello, I'm selling magical wares. And they're like, we haven't seen you for 2 weeks, Mephisto. What's up? That kind of stuff. John said, Catapult. I've done read books. Yep, great. Okay, yes. I saw a thing is missing a crucial table. I have no idea. Enki, as far as I could tell, it has a few too many, so I can't imagine anything missing. I think it's fantastic. And anyways, if a book is missing like one table, make it. I would consider that a feature almost. Yeah, Iron Man himself crowdfunding a new suit. That's about what I feel like Kickstarter has become these days. I am so weary of Kickstarter ads. I don't know about you guys. I'm just so weary of it. Just publish your stuff. Why does everything have to be a Kickstarter now? Like, ever since Dark Souls, the board game, came out, like, it's just like Kickstarters is just like Toys R Us. I don't get it. Okay. Yes, Dave, the Rule Cyclopedia is expensive in print form on Amazon. That is true because it is a bit of a relic, but you can get it in PDF form, which I know isn't that exciting. On Drive-Thru RPG, it's often part of the sort of OSR bundle. I really tried to get through this stream without using that stinking acronym, but there I just did it. Yeah, can you? Yep, sure. Not for sharing. $80. Good. Yep. 210. Okay, cool. I am made weaker by each man who rallies to my banner. Whoa, man, that's heavy. That's heavy duty. But that's for Alexander the Great. I mean, he's like the Gordian knot. I mean, come on, elephants. I hate Kickstarter. I'm really trying Kickstarter. I really love the idea of Kickstarter. Do not get me wrong. Absolutely beautiful for small productions that don't quite have the resources to make it, or to like contracting art for an RPG book is one of the most traditional uses of Kickstarter, at least in the early days. But now it's just like this Etherfields thing. Like, it's just these like $300 board games with all these parts and pieces that just, I finally kind of cracked open my Hellboy game and looked at it, and I took out about 15 minis out of about 150 that I liked, put them on my mini shelf. I'm done. I'll never look at that again. I just got excited. That's twice now I've been excited about Hellboy and been burned. Hellboy IP team, you are fucking up royally. Like, if I was Mike Mignola, I would be pissed. All right. I enjoyed the Drunkens and Dragons content. Okay. I liked Cars from the 70s, but that is the past. So, you know, yeah, here we are in the modern, the current day. I picked up, I had a quick question. I'm only familiar with 5e monsters and ITB AC, or is it just based on the current target? Current target. That's a pretty simple one. Okay, if we're going to, these are digressions, we're done. That is the book battle, you guys. We got Rappan, Athuk and Barrowmaze, both great books, both amazing. But I really think that Barrowmaze shows that our hobby is truly moving forward in its innovation, its quality of writing, its quality of art. And this term, I mean, it's unfortunate Greg Gillespie has an OSR logo like right on the front of his book. That's one of the things I really don't like. I do not think we need to call out the old school to make things cool. It doesn't need to be old school. Barrowmaze is not old school in my opinion. Not at all. It is highly innovative, very modern feeling. And to me, like, this association between just crawling through dungeons, using tables, maybe having some lethality, that's not old school. That's modern. Like, let go that the old school was somehow cool. I think all it is, and we were talking about this on the Discord channel, all the term old school ever does is get used against newcomers as a method to gloat. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Blech. So, no more old school Renaissance. We are just in the present. Is that so disappointing? We can't just be in the now. Barrowmaze is a super innovative mega dungeon with really good writing, kick-ass art, and Greg Gillespie deserves lots of sales so that he can make whatever it is he's going to make next, because I think it's going to be even cooler. And I, for one, will be hanging on pins and needles to see what it is. And in the meantime, I mean, like all of you guys, I'm working on 50 million things at the same time because of attention surplus syndrome. But I'm certainly thinking very deeply about trying to run Barrowmaze right out of the book, like as written, and I never do that. But this is cool, right as it's written, even right down to the pre-gens. Tasty, tasty business. So, I'm going to keep asking my question unless you say you don't want to talk about it. Just not sure if you're seeing it or not. What's your question? Good God. Okay, I'll scroll up. Could you explain your magic circle stuff? Yes. You're talking about the wizard's locks, probably. These are weird circular symbols which mimic circles used in hermetic magic. And they don't have specific rules. As a matter of fact, they've been driving story mysteries in a lot of our campaign arcs. And they are used as locks, wards, gateways, links, using the astral plane, using ley lines, using spell empowering glyphs and circles. Yeah, they're not simple or discrete in any way. They are very sort of muddy in exactly what they do. You recommended Basic Rules Encyclopedia over the AD&D DM's Guide. Absolutely, yes, absolutely. The Rules Encyclopedia is everything. It's a player's handbook, a DM's guide, a monster manual, a fortress guide. It's got a world in it. It's like, frankly, the DM's guides are some of the worst books I think in all of role playing in general. Um, what are they really? I mean, you guys have seen the one where I get drunk and talk about the 5th edition DM guide. I'm just like, so anyway, that's it. That's it. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Just a quickie here. I'm trying to get this format as tight as I can get it without just like going bonkers. But sometimes you have a big old Honey Crisp, like this delicious one right here. I have a few bites left, and you just get electrified. So please check out Barrowmaze, and stay tuned because pretty soon we're going to be finishing up the old Hekun Carapace. There's not much work left to do on it, so you can tune in for that, and we'll be doing some stuff. And when you do stuff, you can't get enough stuff. So you just got to keep on cutting. Just keep on cutting. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. Been great. I'll see you on the internet. Keep it real. Don't steal. You're always going to get a deal. Old Ingrid Bernal here floating back into the void. Whoa! Boo.